Hello, and welcome to Genius League Smart Bytes powered by HPE. I'm Lindsay Wagaman, a partnerships intern here at Evil Geniuses, and I'll be your host tonight for our Path to Esports conversation. We'll be discussing ways for viewers to break into the esports industry with insights from our guests. And we'll be answering questions from the audience, so if you have a question, please feel free to put it in Twitch chat, and we'll get to those closer to the end of our conversation tonight. We're really honored to have our partners at HPE present the entire Smart Byte series. HPE is the official data insights partner of EG, and they're working with us and our coaching staff to create AI and machine learning tools to analyze gameplay and evolve team strategy. We've worked with them to show our fans more data insights along with their logo that we display proudly on our shoulder of our jerseys. Stay tuned for a lot more exciting things from our partnership with HPE, but for now, let's introduce our three special guests. We have EG's Casey Evans, Global Director of Brand Marketing, Carrie Sunderland, Director of Product Operations, and HPE's Michael Israel, Senior Manager of Global Sponsorship, Brand Marketing, and Experience. Welcome to you all. I hope you're all having a great night or day, depending on where you're at. And I'd really love to dive right in. And we're going to start with your guys' background. Excuse me. So we're really excited to have you guys here. So if we could start off with introductions. Casey, would you mind kicking us off and tell us a little bit about your title, who you are, as well as what you do at EG?
Yeah, I would love to. Well, first of all, Lindsay, you're a great host. Thanks for kicking us off. Michael, HPE friends, so pumped to be doing this with you and have this kind of cross collab to talk about how to get into esports, what it's like working in esports, what's coming in the future, what we're working on with HPE, and all those good things. So, with that, I'm Casey Evans. I'm our Director of Global Brand Marketing. I touch everything from, our activations and how we show up to the community in person, to our social media strategy and the editorial side, to help with our PR and comms, as well as a lot of our partnerships, ideation, and branded opportunities with various awesome brands such as HPE. So again, super excited to be here. And I guess a quick recap of my time at EG is I've been at EG and esports for about a year now. But prior to that, I worked about 8 seasons, almost 9, with Major League Baseball. And so excited to talk about how that kind of brought me here and all that good stuff once we get digging in.
That's awesome.
Thank
If
you.
we can throw it to Carrie quick, would you mind sharing with the audience your title, what you do, and then a little bit about, I'm going to spoil it a bit, what product operations are?
Oh, of course. And again, I'm excited to be with everybody on this call. So as Director of Product Management, I work on our innovation team where I manage our Evil Genius software engineers, data science and analytics teams, and our product designers. I'm responsible for ensuring that all of these teams work together effectively and efficiently to develop and deliver high quality analytics tools that we use throughout our organization, competitive gaming, partnerships, marketing, as well as even some fun things that we do for our fan base externally.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Fantastic. All right. Do you have anything else to add? Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No worries. I was just going to say one of the main things that I do in my day-to-day is define our product and roadmap strategy. And that's a big part of what product operations is.
Awesome. All right. And last but certainly not least, Michael, would you mind sharing a little bit about your title as well as like what HPE is doing with EG, any current projects, and then also kind of what stood out about EG to you guys in the esports ecosystem?
Of course, a lot going on in there, and some of them I think we'll hit later on in the discussion. But a quick kind of overview. Michael Israel, I'm a senior manager of global sponsorship, brand marketing, and experience at Hewlett Packard Enterprise. And our sponsorship team, oversees a global sponsorship portfolio. Includes everything from traditional sports, Mercedes, Formula One, Golden State Warriors, Dallas Cowboys, some entertainment properties like Disney parks, and of course, getting into esports with Evil Geniuses. So we handle a lot of that. And what do? We have partnerships with sports entertainment organizations that have a need for technology. We partner with them and utilize the relationship to help tell those stories, bring them to life, and create memorable experiences for people to engage with the HP brand.
That's fantastic. I really enjoy hearing about all of your backgrounds. And I'd really kind of like to dive a bit more into what you were talking about, Michael. Would you mind talking about how HP and EG's teams kind of have helped each other build brand experiences on both sides?
Yeah, we're pretty unique in that most marketing relationships, the brand is just trying to get something out of it, right? They're trying to associate and then utilize that partnership to bring in new customers and things. Really, how we've utilize partnerships, it's a two-way street, right? We provide technology, and it is a true partnership. We work with the teams to provide technology and help them solve problems. So working with Evil Geniuses to help solve problems through technology. And then we utilize that to help tell those stories and reach other folks who might have similar problems to solve or interest in HP technology, to help their business. But really, that's kind of the core of what we do, and why we partnership with Evil Geniuses is we look at the landscape and understand that esports is such a fantastic industry. It's something that's been growing and really has established itself as a dominant force. And so, we aren't just going to partner with anyone. We look around kind of the industry, where's the right place for us to be. In meeting with Evil Geniuses, it was just the right fit, right? They're looking to push the boundaries through technology. They're really a data-driven organization. And we saw that, hey, there's an area for us to really step in and make an impact in the organization. And that kind of led to the partnership and how we got involved working together to hopefully elevate the organization, elevate the gameplay, and ultimately win more games. But that's really kind of our entry point and why we're partners together.
I'd
That's
love to
awesome.
I don't know if I can elaborate on that a little bit, but I feel like
Absolutely.
Michael, you gave us so much love to EG, but I think like same thing on the other side, right? Talking about the right kind of partners and who makes sense for our brand too. Like HPE has been an incredible partner in what Michael's talking about. For those who don't know, like our brand and how we are setting ourselves apart in the esports ecosystem is really around developing young players, around taking data and analytics, whether it's on voice comms and how players communicate, or how to up your drafting. Like we're doing all these things so that our players can develop better every day in the scrim room, when they're practicing, when they're watching film, all those things. And so it was really important, I think, from the EG side too, to work with such a juggernaut, right? Such an incredible brand like HPE to come in and help us get that right so that we can continue evolving the way that we want to. So it's been like this really beautiful pairing of experts in two totally different worlds. However, we've been coming together and it's just kind of been really amazing and beautiful, as cheesy as that sounds. And we're only like part of the way in. We still got a lot more going.
Yeah. And one of the things I wanted to mention that's been really awesome is I talked about how one of my responsibilities is managing strategic roadmaps from our software and engineering perspective. And the work HP has done with us on deep data and artificial intelligence has been really, really exciting. And it's stuff that they've helped us incorporate in our strategic and our roadmap planning so that we can deliver cool features for our coaches. And it's been fun to watch their process, how they interview users and ask those right questions to get to those right answers. So yes, wonderful partnership.
Definitely. And Michael, you mentioned a really interesting and really good point of how kind of pushing boundaries on both sides. And I think that's such a good notion to make and a good point to make, is how much EG's been pushing the boundaries in esports in the best ways, and how HPE is even helping contribute to that further. Because we don't see a lot of data-driven insights and a lot of data-driven partnerships in esports right now. And it's so fantastic to see that boundary being pushed, and it'll be pushed even further with what HPE has coming down the pipeline for us.
Totally. I mean, that's what we're excited about building, right? So, esports is interesting, and as we kind of transition and talk about, for this this session, how working in esports, one of the interesting things is esports is built on data naturally, right? The whole thing is technology and data working together. So there's so much that's just kind of built in, which transitioning to just our conversation here leads to a lot of opportunities, a lot of opportunities for people to find jobs, for people to find their own way depending on what they like in esports.
Absolutely. And I think we can elaborate that a little bit further and how all of you entered esports. So I know each of you have had a different path, and I really want to dive into those. So Michael and Casey, I know both of you have a background more in traditional sports. And I'd really like if we could kind of talk about how that background supports you currently in working with an esports team at HPE as well as working with EG, Casey.
Yeah, I can start. So as I said, I started my career at Major League Baseball. So that was in about 2014. And when I started, it was, I wouldn't say like social media was new, but it was still, people were trying to figure out what it meant for brands, how to be authentic. Like there was just a lot still happening and learning, especially in the world of like Twitter, for instance, just trying to figure out how to do that right. And eventually, after a few years, we had a company merger and all this stuff. So I worked out the commissioner's office. And what's crazy and what really caught, what I really appreciate so much about the HPE partnership and everything that EG is focused on with developing talent and using data and analytics to find talent, discover, recruit, all those things, is that, that's how traditional sports works. That's what I'm used to from being a collegiate volleyball player. I know what the recruitment process looks like, but you have so many Gen Z, entering college, starting to play in high school, esports or something, and there's no real route to like get them there on a player level, even, as well. And so something that I, in my interview process with EG, really latched onto, I was talking to Chris, who is our Chief Innovation Officer. And, we were talking about baseball stats and Factor and EG Factor and all these things that we were trying to do to figure out, or that EG was trying to do at the time and still doing, to try and figure out how we can discover these hidden talents all over the world, really, because gaming is so accessible. Anyways, and so that really resonated with me because I worked in baseball, and baseball is all about stats, and baseball has the weirdest stats and the most fun stats. And so that was like a quick connection to EG. But in terms of like esports, I, for my entire life, have been both an athlete and a gamer, but, casual gaming, like Nintendo Switch, Game Boy, like all that, like typical 90s kid, early 2000s kid. And so, but what I started to notice was, I'd say the last like 3 or 4 years of my career in baseball, we would be drawing inspo and ideas and things we wanted to do from video games and esports. We'd be saying, look at what they're doing. Look at how cool that is. How do we access that fan base? How does baseball get younger? And the answer was esports and video games, and trying to figure out how we fit in. And in that process, I think, I somehow was dubbed in our brand marketing department at MLB to kind of help make those relationships across, with Epic Games, to talk about Fortnite, MLB, Minecraft, whatever it might have been. And that just kind of, over time, my last few years at MLB, when I was trying to figure out what my next move was and what industry I wanted to be in and where I felt like I could contribute, I really felt like it was esports. I felt like it was kind of mixing two passions, one being athletics and, marketing and all those things for sports, but also just, it's video games. At the end of the day, like, we have the funnest job on earth. Like, we get to just talk about games, A couple days ago in the office, I was playing against Sonic Fox and Skullgirls and getting absolutely wrecked while To Kill Sage was teaching me how to do it. And that's awesome. Like, how do, it's all about that. Anyways, so it was just kind of, I felt like a calling to me to happen. And sure enough, I started applying to jobs in gaming in general. I was looking at a lot of developers and thinking I wanted to go that route. But ultimately, what ended up happening was I decided that where I could bring the most knowledge was probably to a team coming from a league, right, in traditional sports. And so I ditched all the resumes that I made for the publishers and game developers and things like that. And instead, I said, I am only willing to move to Seattle or California. What are my options for esports teams? And there's a lot in California, but there's only one in the Pacific Northwest. I'd always wanted to live up here. And so I applied to EG, and luckily it worked out, right? And it just really felt like the perfect fit through that interview process too, with how much EG leadership was talking about traditional sports inspiration, how we can develop esports into a stronger, more stable industry on that front for players and recruiting. And so it just all kind of fell into place. It's pretty awesome. But with that, Michael, tell us a little bit about your traditional sports to HPE journey and any crossover you see. I've got lots of thoughts, but I've never talked to anyone about it from a basketball side, so I want to hear what you think too.
Yeah, I started with a very traditional sports background, really back in college, thinking I was going to be on Sports Center, work for ESPN in
Yep.
some sort of sports role. Had a sports radio show in college. Not many listeners, unfortunately, so that
That's
didn't
so fun.
last. But really, kind of grabbed every traditional sports role you can as a young person. Working in marketing for the athletics department, working in sales in college, selling tickets and whatnot. Working for
You're
a minor league,
grinding.
an independent baseball team, the Tucson Toros, basically a jack of all trades, right? So starting there, out of school, working for the Golden State Warriors in sales, really kind of found that path. One of the most common things I heard in school wanting to work in sports is, hey, sales are where the jobs are. So I kind of followed that advice, and it worked to a degree. It got me into sports. I was with the Golden State Warriors for 4 years, but ultimately I knew I didn't really want to stay in sales, in a sales role. So I was looking for different opportunities. I found GMR Marketing, and they're a sports and entertainment lifestyle agency specializing in really experiential and working with brands to make experiences happen. And I worked with HP as my main client. HPE split off into two companies. I followed the route with HPE and was there for 9 years. Really, that's a unique opportunity working at an agency compared to other opportunities is because you hear everything, right? You're hearing different clients and different problems that they have, different things that they're doing, different solutions, all sorts of exciting things, which is one of the coolest things about working at an agency. And you hear about esports, right? This is 10 years ago. Esports is around, but still establishing itself really as a business. You start hearing about it, you hear about it some more and more, and you're just like, hey, I gotta know, just as a professional in this industry, I've got to know more about it. I've got to find the opportunities. You start seeing it in SBJ and just other areas as really major business. So getting exposed to it from that point of view, and then from a business point of view, working closely with HPE, who now, of course, I work for, we just knew that esports was a place we should be. It makes so much sense just for all the reasons we've talked about. And then that's kind of the first exposure to actually working in esports on a more everyday level.
Yeah. Do you feel like you've noticed any crossover just from working with EG and some of the projects we're doing together from your traditional sports days, whether that was at the Warriors or in school or anything?
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, every industry, every different type of sport is going to have quirks. It's going to have its unique ways of doing things, but it's all about the same thing, right? Business is business in a lot of ways. And it's really all about understanding, right? Understanding your market, understanding the industry, understanding your goals, and making those things happen. And that translates across. So for the audience, I mean, wherever you're looking to go, those things translate. Certainly relevant in esports, but you see that carry over, and those skills you learn anywhere or any industry carry over into esports for sure.
Yeah.
One thing I want to add is I've sat in some rooms with Michael and some other folks at HPE where that crossover in industry knowledge has really helped enhance our conversation on problem solving as well.
I love that. It's an interesting point because, I mean, even recently, the Genius League and they had, I think it was George Fox University in our Seattle office for a visit, and came and did a tour, and the esports team was so pumped to be an official esports office, and we were talking back and forth, and they started asking us, they're like, so what's the best way to start working in esports? And the first thing that I could think of, and it sounded so horrible, but it's true, is don't get your first job in esports. Maybe go learn some work and trades and things that esports needs more knowledge on, because this business is still so young and there's still so much being figured out. It's all so adaptive all the time that, we are in constant dire need of people with expertise from all over the place. And I feel like that's probably not as broadly known, right? I think it's still so tight knit, the esports network and community, and we want people who enjoy video games and esports, but who also can come and contribute maybe in different ways. And so I love that point, Michael. Like, just your skill set for whatever it is, whether it's operations or the business side or project management or creative, like we need it all, and the industry needs it all. Data engineers, like all of these things are incredible opportunities that are here in esports. And I think we're just kind of waiting for people to realize, like, hey, come apply, come check this out. Like, we're doing some really cool stuff.
It's skills over knowledge, right? Like it's,
Yeah.
it's finding people with the right skills, interest in the industry, interest in your organization, those type of things. But being an encyclopedia of knowledge on every detail and history of esports or a game or anything like that only goes so far. The skills translate 10 times over.
Yep, it's so true.
Carrie, from a product operations standpoint, how do you see those skills transferring in? Because I know from your background, not being in sports or even esports, how did you see some of that skill set translate into operations and esports?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So working in esports, it can be really different than working in tech, which is where my background comes from. Esports moves really fast. It's very dynamic. For instance, you have patch changes, meta changes, player changes, roster changes, coaching changes. And so things are constantly emerging and changing. And so you have to be very, very nimble. And I think one of the ways this really becomes applicable, though, from the tech industry is our agile processes, where we adapt to the needs that come up with the change that's happening. If it's something like a lot of our customers are our internal coaching staff, their needs change based on maybe they're playing a certain team in playoffs that they weren't expecting to need us to do this special thing. And so a lot of those agile principles help with that. And then I think the other thing that's really unique in esports is data acquisition. It's not always the cleanest, easiest way to get our data normalized in our databases. And so we have to, that's why we work with a lot of really, really great companies like HPE that can help us make that stuff cleaner, clearer, and more manageable, because we operate pretty nimbly. The other thing I would say is, another thing that's really different is, I would say tech can be very, very, have industry standards, best practices. They're a little bit more rigid and bureaucratic. Little bit less room for experimentation or innovation. And I think that's one thing that's really, really positive about the esports industry is you get to do cutting edge things. You get to try new things, because a lot of times in this emerging industry, it doesn't exist yet.
Absolutely. I've heard esports described as the wild, wild west so many times. And that's so true of how many things are still so emerging and still developing. But it's also great that people like you guys are coming in and showing your paths and how you've been emerging with this space. And I think it's fantastic. And before we go into our next questions, we just want to take a quick pause, welcome everybody who's just joining us and tuning into Smart Bytes powered by HPE. And we'd also like to thank our official data insights partner, HPE, as this series wouldn't be happening without them. You can find more about how EG is working with HPE using AI and machine learning to help our game strategy by clicking the link in chat. And with that, if you also have any questions that you would like us to answer closer to the end of this panel, you guys can go ahead and put those in chat and we'll get those closer to the end. So let's hop back into it. Did you guys find any skills that you use unique to esports compared to other experiences? Or do you see that a lot of those skills that you've transferred in really, again, transferable or are just learned from outside of esports?
I have one. Traditional businesses do not use Discord for operations and communications. That's a big difference. Where in esports, that's the main way to communicate.
Touchy subject. It's hard.
I see it all over. And to me too, Slack. I hadn't started using Slack until I'd gotten actually more into esports, which is really interesting.
Mm-hmm. Well, what's crazy, or what I think is ironic even about that, Lindsay, is like, I'm used to Slack, and I think most corporate companies use Slack. And so then it was like, on the business side, everyone started using Slack, even the Riots of the world, right? And so it's like, okay, we're in Slack, we're communicating here, but then there's also a Discord. And so misinformation, the organized, like, it gets so disorganized because there's so many platforms and communities that when we start interacting even on a business level, it's like, okay, where are we having our serious conversations? Are we emailing? Are we Slacking? Are we Discording? Are we G meeting? Are we Zooming? Are we huddling? Just voice chat? Like there's so many things. So I second that, Carrie. I'm like, let's pick one. Let's all go in on Discord, or let's all go in on Slack, or let's let Discord be for like fun community stuff, like I love it for, and not work. But I think the skill that I have learned from esports is for sure the adaptability, the flexibility, the being nimble. Like, I thought that I was flexible and nimble before. Oh no, like now I am Gumby. Like, and you have to be. I think that, to put it in perspective for anyone who hopefully is watching as like an introductory or something to esports, you really, if you're working from a team or on a team, you're really at the kind of, you don't have as much power, right? You have to do the tournament organizers and go by their schedules. And then there's also the publisher schedules and the things that they need. And so if you're EG and you play in 5 different titles, or you have multiple Counter-Strike rosters and Valorant rosters, that's a lot of esports games. I mean, we're playing multiple matches a day. And so, then when you get to Carrie's point of let's go a layer deeper and understand how our performance really is going, what's not working, what's working, how can we take data analytics to tell us more, all those things, it gets really crazy. And you have to be able to be flexible on both the audiences that you're talking to. You got to be flexible on the timelines and how many games there are. You've got to be flexible on how many, roster changes and shifts might come. And so that is number one. I will forever, no matter what happens in my career, be thankful to esports for making me the most flexible human being of all time. Because it's actually also happened in my personal life too at this point, I feel like, which is great.
You have to be like a gold medal gymnast in this space.
You do. Simone Biles. That's it.
One of the things I was going to say, and I don't know if it's totally unique to esports, but it's something that with how fast things move that I've noticed the team that I work with has to be really, really cognizant of is our quality of output. Because roster changes happen so suddenly and quickly all of the time, if we're on last week's news, we give our coaches bad information, bad quality output, stuff that they can't use because that can change the entire composition of how they will play the game or draft the game. And so that's something that's definitely become more critical in the work that I do here, is making sure our quality of output's really, really strong.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And Michael, for you, in terms of, the management or like the skill set needed for an esports organization compared to the other like entertainment companies that you mentioned, do you see any like unique skills needed to focus on that esports?
Yeah, I think most of the skills translate. However, certainly from us as a B2B tech company, we're generally reaching an audience through very traditional paths in very traditional ways. It's creativity and frankly it allows us to think differently in esports, different channels, different mediums, different audiences, all those things. So it's having the creativity and being able to, I mean, a lot of the buzzwords that have been said, but the flexibility and the speed, with the creativity to make those things happen and to think outside the box and not just kind of take your mindset of, okay, this is what worked in baseball, and then we're going to apply that to esports. It won't work most of the time. So it's creativity. It's thinking about things differently, which is a skill set, but it's also exciting. It's what everyone wants to do in their day to day, right? No one wants a boring job. So it's awesome that you get to kind of switch things up and think about things a little differently in a whole new way.
Yeah. I definitely enjoy the creative thinking in every aspect of what I do because you have to quick on your feet, or you have to think quickly on your feet. There you go, I got it. And that goes along with the flexibility that you all were touching on as well. And I think those skill sets outside of esports that we can learn are so important to be applicable inside of this space as well.
Yeah.
Now, Casey, you've been with EG a little over a year now, like you said, and you have a decorated background being a 2-time Shorty Award nominee and a Webby Award winner. Do you have, like we were talking about the creative thinking, do you have some creative challenges that you've experienced between working on sports marketing and esports content?
Yeah, there's a lot of creative challenges, but they're fun. To Michael's point, and he started to kind of actually tee this up, which was great, which is that it is exciting because everything is creative. Even the way that we do things is creative. It's, we have to, because this is not, to Michael's point, there is no industry that we can replicate. There is no business model that we can replicate. It's taking a lot of backgrounds and bits and pieces of things that have worked elsewhere and trying to make them work synonymously for esports, right? And so
building the bridge as you go, yeah.
Yes, you really are doing that, and that's what everyone in esports is trying to do right now. So, but yes, I think while it allows for so much excitement and creating new, what the pace of esports can do is really bog you down. So if you are not, like taking care of yourself, not getting burnout, like I think that we face that a lot on the creative side because we are constantly trying to be creative. And when you are a creative person, you really care about your art, you really care about your work, you really care about your ideas, your vision, and you want to see it come through the way that you're picturing it. And I think so one of our biggest struggles is just trying to stay creative with the pace, right? And trying to keep things interesting. But the other thing is that you have to be creative for EG, right? If you were to think about, okay, we play in 4 different titles, and then we have our actual brand, EG. And then we have all these creators and players, right, that all have their own personal brands. If you were just to look at the 5, right, our titles and our EG brand, that right there is 5 different audiences, 5 different ways to be creative, 5 different strategies, 5 different communities, 5 different platform preferences,
different languages at different points, right?
Languages, like everything is different for every single sector of our business. And so everything is unique, everything. Which again, really exciting, but also a really big task and a tall order. And so the hardest thing that we face creatively is that in 1 hour, we might need to be thinking about data analytics with HPE and how that's going to evolve our performance, right? And how we can tell that story through marketing and content that's interesting to maybe a demographic for a couple of our titles that we know are very tech savvy or who are early adopters or like whatever. That might have its own market, right? But then when we go make Valorant content and it's with Show Liana and Boostio, like that's a totally different creative route. So it's about having to turn it on and off and switch gears every single day about 12 times through the 8 hours. And that is both super fun and makes no day a dull day, but it's also exhausting and really, really hard to stay creative. So those are probably the big things. But, even holistically, I think the whole idea of esports is sort of a creative vision like the entirety of it, and people can see the potential and feel it and know it's coming. But we can't just do that overnight, right? We have to take steps. And so I think something, even going back to the skill set question too, is like there's a little bit of like unwinding and trial and error and square peg round hole. Like there's a lot of just trying to test things out and see what works. And then once we know what's working, then our creative can get a little bit more loose because it knows where it's headed. And so we can kind of take a step back and treat things that way. But right now it's all about putting systems and processes and structures in place so that those run smoothly, all the technical things run smoothly so that then we have more air and more time to be creative. But we're still kind of in that first, I think, step of figuring out how to get everything that we can structured and technical so that it's just
Yep, just building those processes,
Yeah, well, and Carrie was talking about it earlier, like the skill sets, Carrie and her team, got to give them massive credits because not only are they trying to help us tell better stories and get our quality right on the performance side, but they also are super impactful and paramount to the marketing team literally every day to make sure that we know who we're talking to, what we're trying to say to them, what they're going to care about. And, it's, I don't know, it is the wild, wild west, like you said earlier.
And I think one of the things that's like, if like looking at skill set, I think being able to be adaptable to that, because one of the things that's really unique to our marketing, just from a data perspective, is they have all of these different social channels that they use to talk to our fans, and they're all owned by a different company that have a different way of storing data, sharing data, different rules around privacy and sharing information about their users. And so for tech, it's actually very, very fun because we get to solve those problems. It's a thing that we're like, we can figure this out some way, but it's definitely challenging and can be very exhausting.
Definitely. So with that, do you guys have any projects that you've like really enjoyed working on, that you've seen those creative thinking, that different side of content come through? And also, Michael, I'll throw that to you. Like, what have been some of your favorite projects that you've seen driven by data between EG and HPE?
Yeah, we have some really exciting things coming up. So stay tuned to all channels. I won't spoil it, but some things we're doing about just finding new talent and kind of the next generation of EG players, and helping use kind of data and analytics to find those people. So stay tuned for some of that. But one of the cool projects that we've just completed, or constantly working on, but recent milestone is analyzing voice communication. So just how the players talk to each other, their sentiment. What are they saying? Are they saying the right things at the right time? And how can you use that data to actually get value out of it? It's cool to get the data, but it really isn't useful without the actionable kind of insights of, okay, this point in the game they maybe didn't communicate as well as they should have, and those type of learning. So really excited about that. And it was really exciting from an HPE perspective to really come to the public of our partnership from a marketing perspective. Probably my favorite moment at our big Discover conference in Las Vegas. So really a big moment for us, and being able to share the partnership with the world on stage with our CEO. It was a great moment. So those definitely stand out.
Fantastic. And I really enjoy the voice com videos. I think those are amazing that you guys sponsor as well. I really, especially like you said, the sentiment analysis, I think it's very interesting that you can take from those voice comms that go out to content, but also help drive something further. I think is incredible.
Yeah. I think too, like something about the comms and the audio tool, like we talk a lot about how it helps on the direct like business side, right? And kind of the more obvious like performance things, but they're really a great opportunity for anyone who doesn't understand the depth of thought in esports. Like if you were to watch a comms video, you'd probably have to watch it like 10 times slower or have the audio slowed down to like really understand what they're saying. But the amount of strategy and that appreciation of watching like a comms video for the first time was a big aha moment for me. And anyways, it's just so cool. Yeah.
I want to add to that. I was having a conversation with one of our coaches, Razvan, like an incredible. We're so lucky to have him at EG. He's incredible at data, but also from a League of Legends perspective. And one of the things he was talking about is in the past they would have people look the video and type out the words people were saying to try to get them to categorize them. And so it has definitely been one of the highlights of seeing like our ability to capture that and reduce some of the manual stuff that the coaches were doing, but then add to it so it's actionable.
Super cool.
And with the voice comms being one of the projects, do any of you have another project between either EG and HPE, or any other project that you've worked on during your time here at EG that you would describe as your favorite or a highlight of your time?
Yeah. Well, one of the projects I'm currently working on is with HPE, and I think it's announced next week, so I can't say it yet. But that has been super fun. So stay tuned for Monday. But outside of that, my like big moment and kind of like personal moment of realizing I made the right decision was last year at LCS Spring Finals. It was my first in-person esports event. It was my first time having my team together. It was boots on the ground for an experiential activation with Riot. And the team also, of course, ended up winning, if anyone doesn't know, which was just a bonus. But my story is not about that. It's about, you were asking just about like the creative and the projects and things that have come together. And what I'm so proud about this one is that I had just started at EG, probably been around for like a month and a half or so, was learning so much. For anyone who thinks that they know video games and understands esports, you don't until you are here and you are really in it. And so, I had been going through these fun training courses, like the EG team does a really great job for new employees coming in. Lots of time with the gaming team, coaches, admins, understanding what they do and all of that. It's super informational. But then we also had our incredible leaders of the Creator Collective teach us the lingo about Twitch. Like I learned what KEKW was. I learned all these things. In that, I also was taught what touch grass meant. And that was so funny to me. I don't know why. It just resonated instantly. And I was talking to, I don't know, we were like brainstorming for LCS finals. And I was like, you guys, why don't we just like make one of these memes that you all talk about come to life? Like, let's do it. Let's just like make one come to life. What's like something trolly, but that can be really content forward and easy. And eventually I was like, should we just put grass at the LCS finals and like let people touch it?
So
That's phenomenal.
Slap the PG logo on it.
One thing you don't know is that was before I started EG, and I saw that activation, and I was like, that is so clever. I want to be there.
That's
I
awesome.
saw it on Twitter too, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is hilarious.
It's all coming full circle. Yeah, it was awesome. And it was such a special moment for me because one, it was the first time I felt like I threw something out there to our team where they were like, oh my gosh, yes. Duh, like you're so right. And I was like, you guys, you get it. Okay, we're good. Like I'm gonna be okay. And not only that, kind of solidifying it from the team, the marketing team, but then getting to go to the event and see fans walk up and see our grass installation and be like, OMFG, you have real grass here. That's freaking awesome. Mad respect. And it was the most popular booth out of all the teams. Sorry, any other esports team watching this, but you had, social was covered with it. Everyone's touching the grass. Everyone's, it was awesome. So it was a very affirming, I think, moment for me. And so it will forever be probably my favorite project because it's just so special. So that's mine. I don't know, Carrie, what's yours?
Oh, it's so hard to narrow it down. Shout out to our teams in Belfast and Seattle. And I love working with them, and we've been able to do some really, really cool things. I think two things stick out in particular. One is recently, after a win that we had on League of Legends, one of our players, Vulcan, mentioned one of the internal tools that we built and how he knew what to do because he had used that tool. And it made my whole day. So that's one thing that was really, really exciting. And then another thing that we're working on right now with HPE is a relationship analysis tool for some of, I don't want to go too much into it because it's our secret sauce. And we've worked really, really closely with our coaches on it and making it smart, making it better, using machine learning to really, really enhance some of the decisions we make in League of Legends.
Yeah.
So incredible.
Lindsay, I'm going to throw the question reverse at you.
Okay.
Every time I'm around students or Gen Z or even Gen Alpha, it's like, let's pick your brain because we're probably trying to target you in some of our marketing somewhere. And so I'm just curious, what are some projects that you've seen in the space that you think are really cool? What are some things that you want to see teams do or would love to see as a fan? Give us a little bit of insight on what you think we should be thinking about because you probably know better than me.
Well, one of my favorites that I've seen so far is at the start of the LCS season was the Crocs.
Oh
I
yeah.
thought having the Croc content and tying it into the different posts and it just kind of transcending from an issue that happened to something that's so funny and so connectable with different generations. I thought it was genius, as we could say.
Yeah, but
And go ahead.
no, I just said but genius.
Oh, gotcha. Other projects.
Wait, I
I don't
want
know.
to talk
The
about the
grass
Croc
one was so
one.
good. The
That
which
was a
one?
good. I want to talk about the Croc one because that's a perfect example of like, I don't know, just trying to. I think when you're talking about marketing and branding and having good ideas, like it's really about connecting dots. So
Mhm.
we were lucky enough that our LCS players really dove into the Croc stuff last year and throughout Worlds, and they kind of made that a thing, and the community started to make it a thing. And we just realized in the off season, like, if we don't try to do something, this is going to be the biggest fail, right? Like we've got to do something. And so, got to shout out our head of our esports content, which is John Jung, who came together and worked with some of our studio partners at Frenzy Media in LA to come up with that one. And it was so fun. We were just having a blast. And I think we ended up giving out a bunch of signed Crocs
Yeah.
at opening weekend, and we were doing stuff online. It was awesome.
So
That was a
good. I love that. And I have yet to buy my Crocs, but I'm gonna get there soon. I will definitely be doing that. I've been influenced by EG to buy some Crocs.
nice.
So other than advice for me to go buy Crocs, I have some questions about, advice that you guys would give to people who are interested in a career in esports. And Michael, from you, for those that are interested in technology and esports, how would you describe how they intersect? And then how can people apply their technology skills to working in esports? I know we touched on that a little bit earlier. But if you just want to dive more into that, I think it would be incredible. And then we can throw it out to everybody as well.
Yeah, and working in the technology field is interesting. One, there's a lot of different jobs in technology, so you can be a technologist, you can be a marketer, you can be in operations. There's all sorts of different roles within the technology industry. But the technology industry is great in that you can combine your passion for technology with another passion of yours, whatever that might be, whether it's esports, whether it's, we work with NASA and we're putting supercomputers in space. So, if you were that little kid looking up in the sky and you wanted to be an astronaut, maybe it didn't happen, you can still apply your interest in technology and your passion of or love of space. We work with race cars, and we use data scientists to help Formula One teams shave a hundredth of a second off of their lap time. So it's really interesting in that you can tie technology to whatever you like. And esports again is just a unique place to be able to do that because there's so many different areas that the technology touches, from designing games, and being on that side of the industry, to supporting teams, to working with brands that help the teams. It's really all over, but there's a lot of intersection, and really it just involves you finding passions and merging it with technology.
Definitely. Perry, do you see as well some of those technology skills being applied, and how can they apply those further into a career in esports?
Yeah, definitely. So most of our software engineering team came from outside of esports, but all very, very passionate about esports. And so they're able to build applications, web apps, data pipelines that directly support us in this industry. I think one of the things, I graduated in a time when the economy wasn't as strong. And so I had to go on my plan. I wasn't on my plan A or my plan B. I was on my plan Z at that point. And I think one of the things that happened, though, is I had to get very gritty with my skills. I had to teach myself, I taught myself, you know what I mean, basic HTML so I could work on an ESP. I taught myself about data so that I could understand those pipelines. And what that ended up resulting in is one night when I'm sitting late in the office, I actually was on the marketing team working on the email service provider tool at that time. the CTO saw me working there and he came over and he started talking to me like, what are you all about? What are you doing here? What are you solving? How are you solving this? And how are you getting your team to do this? And it really opened a lot of doors for me by just being there, showing up. And I think if there's anything I say, whether it's technical or not, I think take ownership and get the job done, whether you're in esports or not. Act with integrity wherever you are, and then be easy to work with. Help make your teammates' job light, your bosses or your manager's job light. And eventually you're going to get more and more responsibility and ownership and learn quickly, especially if you're in tech. Know what's cool out there and try it and play with it. That's really, really fun about our partnership with HPE is they're always throwing out open source tools they're using, new tech that's out there that exists in the world. And then the other thing I would say is pay attention to who you're working with. That will make a really big difference in your satisfaction with work. I am so excited every day with the people that I work with here and the team that I work with on the day-to-day. I very much admire software engineers and data scientists because they come to work every day trying to solve big problems for people and companies. And the reason that it's so exciting is we're here in esports. They're so passionate about it, trying to solve these big problems that bring so much delight and joy to people on the day-to-day.
It's incredible. Now, along with the skill set, one of the questions I absolutely love asking and love getting responses from, if you could give yourself advice when you entered into esports, what would it be? So whether it was 3 years, 5 years ago, what would you have wished you'd known before working in esports? We'll start off with anybody but Casey, I think. I see you pondering it.
I'll jump in there. I think a couple of things. I mean, the first one perhaps has already been mentioned, but be ready to move quick. That's esports, and that makes sense, right? It changes quickly. We don't know. Baseball's been around for 150 years, so you generally know what baseball will look like from year to year. Esports just hasn't been around that long. We don't know what games are going to be popular in 5 years. We don't know. How things are going to look like. What is the audience going to want? How are they going to want to consume the games? Are they going to want even more in person? Are they going to only want to, stream it? 20 years ago, we wouldn't have known everyone would be looking at all the content on their phone, right? So be ready to move quick. And then the other thing I would say is, I think sometimes esports is maybe thought about too broadly. We say esports, again, relate it to baseball and just pretend it's another thing where esports is so many things built into that word. And so I do think people sometimes have to understand and look at the different game titles or different things the teams are doing a little bit more individually as opposed to just under this umbrella of esports. And I'm just going to attack esports and go after esports as this broad thing. So those are the couple things I would throw out.
Absolutely.
Definitely want to echo the last one Michael said. Like the ecosystem with the different titles that we cover and even just the perspective of data acquisition is so vast and varied, and it's not always their first priority, and so you have to figure out creative ways to acquire data that you are missing. And so that's definitely something I wish I would have known how complex it was. The other thing I wish I would have known is how, and I've learned this since, but how our coaches make decisions every day that impact the players' performance and get them prepared. I think it would have helped me make a lot of better roadmap decisions in the past.
I think I would just add, and maybe this is more advice pre-esports or like really anything, but what I was thankful for was how much time my coworkers took to help me get ingrained in knowledge and all these things. But I think I underestimated how much there was to learn. To Michael's point, it is so broadly spoken about. And then when you get and you're working on a team, it becomes this insane universe of information, of acronyms, of player names, of multiple names, of do you call them by their gamer tag or their real name? Is it a random capital letter in the middle of their gamer tag name? You betcha it's randomly there, so you better have it, forget AP style, like everything's out the window, right? So there's I wish I had just prepared more because I was so pumped and so ready to dive headfirst in and was and still constantly am. But if I had learned more and taken it upon myself, and I felt like I did, I felt like I was prepared. But if I had dug a layer deeper and maybe ask myself questions before I asked questions to see, can I figure out this answer by myself before I go to another person and ask what this means? You know, what's ESL versus Blast versus IEM? Because all I'm seeing are a bunch of letters and they all sound the same. And so, you know, asking yourself a question before you just default to, you know, relying on someone else to tell you, say, can I maybe answer this question for myself? And I think that goes for anything. That's not just esports. I think that also goes along with being someone who's easy to work with, right? Like it's great to ask questions, but only the questions that are actual questions. Because if you're asking, where do I find this? Or what does ESL stand for? If it's a quick Google or if it's a quick marketing G Drive search, you better not be asking anybody to waste their time on that. So, you know, ask questions, but have them be substance, you know, have them be something where you've actually shown that you've thought, right? And I think that's important even for networking too, and trying to get your foot in the door somewhere. Research the people you're talking to, figure out a common denominator, common thread. You know, did you go to the same college? Did you both work, you know, in whatever or something? Like find those common threads and ask lots of questions, but be thoughtful. Don't ask just to ask, I guess.
Absolutely. And I think knowing the right questions to ask is always an important thing. And with that, we have questions from Twitch chat. So we have one directed right to you, Michael. What is another brand that Michael looks at in esports doing esports partnerships well?
Yeah, there's a lot of brands in the space, obviously, and you know a lot that you think about. I think the one maybe that comes to mind that isn't the first thing to think about that I liked was Louis Vuitton coming in with the trophy case and kind of changing it up. So I mean that comes to mind as like something that stands out that might be, you know, otherwise not thought of. But I like that. It was just kind of something you see right away and you're like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. We're just going to do these as a lightning round if you guys don't mind. So the next one, we'll open it up to all of you. Somebody asked, should I go for a degree in esports to try to get into esports?
So from a technical perspective, we're not looking for that degree. We're looking to see if you have, do you know Python? Do you know what engineering you have? So I would say depends on what you want to do, but for if it's tech or data centric, I would not.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
I second that. I think I'm not super educated on this, so forgive me if this is rude, but like there's no way that there's a college or a university out there that knows enough and has professors that know enough about actually teaching you esports right now. It's too new. No one's doing it right. There's absolutely no way that you're going to learn anything from that. That's my thought.
Agreed. General skills, business skills, all those type of things are most important.
Gotcha. All right, next question. Really for anybody here, but what would you say are some of the top skills and qualities you all might see translating well for the content production, creative, and marketing side from somebody outside of the industry?
That's for Casey or Michael, because
yeah. I feel like I know who put this question in chat, but I'm not going to guess. No, I think that the biggest thing is that for the content side, you know, you look at storytelling, and I don't think that there's really a lot of storytelling happening at a very basic human level in esports. We've got some players and creators with the most amazing stories about how they fell in love with their games, how they got started in cafes, like all these things, internet cafes, and then moved to the US and started, like, it's incredible. And that human factor isn't really like there, right? I think esports got so ahead of it with like technology and internet and Twitch and all these things. And so there's also that live experience instead. So it's just different. So I think coming in and having people that are ready to tell stories, dig deep, find the little pieces of human connections that haven't been uncovered yet. Those are the people that we want to come in and help produce content and get ideas going. And so I'd say really the just the passion for storytelling. I think is what's missing right now, to be honest.
Yeah, and what I would add to that is understand the industry. I mean, you're probably a fan if you're looking to get into it, but go beyond that and understand the industry. Look, so certainly from a kind of brand partnerships and marketing level, when you watch a stream, look at the brands, pay attention. What are different brands doing in the space? If you understand the ecosystem, if you understand just the economics, how do teams operate? What makes them money? How does the industry work all together? Those things are important because you might not have the experience yet. But if you can provide the level of knowledge beyond just being a fan, again, saying all the stats, saying how big of a fan you are of the team or league, will only go so far. You really need to show an understanding of how things work is a huge advantage.
Absolutely. And before we fully wrap things up with you all, where can we find you guys after this panel is over?
I'll go first. I'm Casey Evans on LinkedIn, Casey Evans on Instagram, and at Casey on Twitter. And I'm probably the most active on Twitter and IG. So hit me up there. I'll follow back most likely. Always down to chat esports and networking and anything like that. So yeah, that's me. Carrie?
You can find me at Carrie Sunderland on LinkedIn. You can message me there, and yeah, always happy to talk, chat, connect.
And I'm Michael Israel on LinkedIn. MIsrael1 is the shortened phrase. MIsrael1 on Twitter as well. Happy to connect.
Fantastic. Well, thank you all for joining us this evening for the Genius League Smart Bytes powered by HPE panel with EG's Casey, Carrie, and HPE's Michael. We hope you enjoyed this conversation and gained some insight on the path to esports. And before we fully close out, we want to thank you again, HPE, for helping us bring this to life. We're excited to continue the series on Tuesday, March 28th, for our Path to LCS conversation with Kelsey Moser and Empire, where we'll be discussing how to become the next LCS Rookie of the Year. We look forward to everyone joining us on our next panel, and until then, keep an eye out for a special announcement from EG and HPE on March 27th. Thank you all, and have a great night.
Bye. Thanks for having us.
Bye. Thank you.